There is something wrong in a government where they who do the most have the least. There is something wrong when honesty wears a rag and rascality a robe, when the loving, the tender, eat a crust, while the infamous sit at a banquet. Robert Greene Ingersoll.
Inconceivable!
Will you please act like you have more than a two-word vocabulary?
Is there air? You don't know!
And now, a yak.
Yak!
Hey, don't touch that dial. You found Secular Yakking.
I'm Robert.
And I'm Amy.
After years,
No, many years of yakking at each other.
we're here to yak at you.
So sit back and enjoy the yakking.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a wonderful weekend.
Hopefully they had a better one than we did.
Yeah.
Or at least me.
At least you couldn't tell we're a little bit sickly this week.
Yeah, it just keeps going around and around, and oh my god, it needs to stop.
Yeah, it's not much fun.
I think this is my third time
Yeah.
getting this.
I think I'm on number 2.
Well, part of the problem is you work in a heavily populated area, and we have 3 kids in public school, so
Yeah, that's
we're
not fun
doomed.
either. Yeah. On with the show.
Yes.
Well, we can start with the Twitterers.
One would hope.
We've got D-Tong VO in marketing, Andrea Danielson, Podmosphere, Thomas Cavanis,
Apologies again.
21 Nuke Salute, Wayne Perini, and Carly Kingsley.
And again, if he screwed anyone's up, he apologizes.
Probably just that one.
Either way, you never know.
Anyways, we do have actual news.
And because we're sick, we can't breathe.
Yeah, so we're going to kind of run through this pretty quick this week, I think. But that's okay. You'll still get all the news.
As necessary.
Yeah.
Okay, go.
We have a Potter update.
Do we now?
Yeah, and this is thanks to listener Alan, who sent this to us via Facebook Messenger.
Uh-huh.
So, let's go way back to episode 53 and Potter Award winner Missouri State Rep Mike Moon.
Okay.
He won for his really crappy bill saying that the state could ignore federal laws and how a firearm owner could sue a property owner for not allowing them to carry a gun on private property.
Oh, really?
Not to mention his 3 racist anti-refugee bills.
Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah, this is last year sometime.
Yeah, I don't have a clue.
Well, he's back on the news for some of his responses to questions regarding a personhood bill going through the Missouri State Legislature.
Okay.
So I've got some audio.
Oh, okay.
Do you believe is a sperm alive?
I'm not a clinician. I cannot tell you that, and I would not
Have you
feel
ever seen a
comfortable
tadpole?
to tell you.
Have you ever
Yeah,
seen a tadpole?
sure, I
Is
have.
a tadpole alive?
I'm not sure. I don't.
You're
Is
not
a
sure?
tadpole?
You're not
Is
sure
a
it's
tad?
alive?
I'm not
Okay,
sure what your
that's-
question is.
Is the tadpole alive or dead?
It depends on if the tadpole is alive or dead. I mean, if you're showing me a dead tadpole, then the tadpole is dead. If you're showing me a live tadpole,
Yeah.
all right.
Actually, and I should rephrase that question.
Sure.
But I think you know what I meant.
Representative Moon,
Yes, ma'am.
you're sitting there to be asked questions.
So yeah, he did just compare sperm to tadpoles.
Wow.
And asking if tadpoles were actually alive.
That's some science right there for you. It's a science segment.
I don't even know if that's science. That's insanity.
Seriously?
Seriously, it's what. So the personhood bill would equate a fertilized egg immediately to be a person, right?
As soon as the sperm hits the egg, that little tadpole makes his way.
So as I understand this, he was being questioned on his work on the bill, and he came back with this question of, is a tadpole alive?
That's just crazy.
Yeah, that is.
And that shows his intelligence. I mean, she was less, floored. I'm not even sure what you're saying right now. You're not making any sense.
Yeah. I don't even know. I tried to listen around that, and I can't figure out what the hell he's talking about. And right after that, he got censored by the chair for not answering questions, but for asking questions.
Oh, okay.
So that pretty much ended that line of thinking, if you can call it that.
I can't believe he's comparing a tadpole to sperm just because.
Yeah, well, the first question was, is a sperm alive? Technically, no. I mean, yes, it's a part of a living organism, but it's not alive.
But
it's weird. It's a single cell.
Well, that's exactly where I was going with this. He obviously doesn't understand the difference between a single cell organism and a multi-celled organism.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because he wouldn't be comparing the two if he did. I mean, seriously, dude. Because it's shaped like a duck and it walks like a duck. It's a duck, apparently. Especially when it comes to sperm. But he was trying to get his point across, saying because you say a tadpole is alive, it's a baby frog kind of thing, that makes the sperm entering the egg obviously live. And we can say it's a person already.
Yeah, well...
Before it even starts cell dividing, we're going to call it a person.
Yeah.
That's where he was going with that. You know that, right?
I know.
Okay, just making sure. The guy's a total genius.
Yeah, well...
But I actually... I liked how the whole room was laughing at the question.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to show and say a lot just right there.
Yeah.
Anyways. Yeah.
Has In God We Trust invaded your town? Are you tired of government officials who want to plaster In God We Trust on taxpayer-owned property? Are you afraid because your local sheriff placed an In God We Trust decal on the patrol cars? We are here to help. The original motto project is for those who feel the separation of church and state is an important issue and should be honored regardless of your belief or lack thereof. Theists, non-theists, and all free thinkers are welcome. We need your support to show politicians that diversity exists within our nation, and their promotion of a monotheistic religion and push for theocracy will not be tolerated. Stand up and be heard. Join us at originalmotto.us.
All right, got another fun story for you.
All right, but just real quick. That's got such a cool groove to it. I'm just saying.
You know, sitting here listening to it.
I was just like, yeah, baby. It's a nice groove. Anyways, sorry. Go on.
I'll let Travis know that.
It's awesome.
I got another cool story for you. Yeah, it's I titled it.
Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah, blah.
Don't start with me.
Try again.
An American Girl doll.
Again, I say it.
We'll try that again. American Girl began selling its newest doll Thursday, and one of them is a boy.
No, not a boy.
It's the first full-size boy doll in the popular doll makers lineup. The release of the doll upset Asheville pastor Dr. Keith Ogden.
Asheville?
Asheville.
As in Asheville, North Carolina?
As in Asheville, North Carolina, at the Hill Street Baptist Church.
Oh, we know where that is.
I know where that is because that's where my grandfather preached.
Holy crap. Really?
Yeah.
That's why that name sounds familiar.
Yeah. He said it's not so much the doll as the way people are trying to use it and the message it sends to little boys.
Really?
Yeah. He says...
Oh, okay. I was going to say it for you, but okay. No, I was just going to, kind of say my own thing as to, little boys shouldn't play with dolls
Pretty
kind
much,
of thing.
Yeah. Everything now we want to be gender neutral, Ogden said. And the people before that and placate to that, they amplify it and make it a big issue. When I was coming up as a kid, we had G.I. Joe with a kung fu grip. We knew that was for boys. Ken was made for Barbie. Not so much Ken for boys to start playing with dolls.
Okay, that's kind of hypocritical because it's the same scenario. Ken dolls why didn't he have the beef with Ken dolls back then? Is kind of more of my point is.
He just said Ken dolls were made for girls.
Says who?
They were made for the Barbie set with girls.
So why isn't he see this boy doll as a boy doll for girls to play with?
Because it's being marketed to boys.
Well, either way, the guy is ridiculous.
Well, he says he believes it's part of the trend to remove the role that God intended for the people of each gender.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's why it's important to me.
Yes, because only boys can have blue and only girls can have pink. I don't think so.
Pretty much.
My favorite color is blue.
He also says, I'm not saying boys will turn out to be girls if they play with the doll, but there ought to be some stipulation. Don't call it gender neutral. This is a boy doll, and we're going to put boy clothes on it.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Really.
He actually technically is trying to say that if a boy plays with the doll, he'll turn into a girl.
It
kind of sounds more of like what he's really, truly thinking, but can't say that.
Sure he can. He lives in Asheville.
Yeah, that says a lot. Anyways, but I don't understand. And there's actually a lot of people out there that have that stigma with boys can only play with boy toys, quote unquote, and girls can only play with the girl toys. That's ridiculous and stupid.
If you remember last year before Christmas, Target changed the way that their toys are set up to where there are no boy aisles, no girl aisles.
Oh, well, that's right.
They just mixed everything up.
Right, exactly.
And I forgot who it was. It's like, whatever, I don't know, Red Cat Gooberhead. I don't remember his name.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah, people who listen will probably know who it is.
Okay, fine.
He went all crazy saying how the Target is gender neutralizing all our kids.
What is wrong with equality? Why do people have such a big deal with equality? I mean, really?
Well, it's not equality that they have an issue with. It's gender neutrality.
But that's basically equality. It's treating men and women in the same level, not putting one here, putting one there, either or. You're actually on the same playing field.
Right. Well, they see it as the demasculinification of men by allowing boys to play with girl toys.
Really?
And the masculinification of women by allowing girls to play with boy toys.
Right, because God forbid, a man should be a good father to his children, or a woman be able to, bring home more money than her husband.
Oh, we
can't have that.
No, absolutely not. There's no way a woman should make as much money as a man.
What I find ironically, though, that was just running through my head just now while we were talking, is the fact that you and I, like if someone looks at our family setup, we actually do it almost like the old 50s way. You go to work, I'm the stay-at-home mom kind of thing, which is like a polar opposite to how we believe and how we feel. It's just that is how it worked out for our situation.
Right.
So I don't know. It's just something I was thinking about. It's kind of funny because to look at us from the outside, you would think we're this conservative...
We're the nuclear family.
Yeah, we're the conservative 50s family where I stay home and make dinner and clean the house and take care of the kids while you go to work and, you're the sole breadwinner, yada, yada, yada. And it's kind of funny that it's the polar opposite of our beliefs. It's just, I don't know, it's just something going through my head.
It's another one of those things where I'm willing to defend someone else's right to do what they want.
Well, no, it's not only that. That just happened to be the situation that worked for us. But it kind of goes back to my beliefs as to stop doing labels. People don't have to be categorized. They don't have to fit this particular mold just because that's how society has the mold. You could make the mold anything you damn well please. And we're kind of like a living aspect of that because we do exactly that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's just thoughts going through my head.
I know.
Anyway, sorry.
Hi friends, are you a non-believer living in the Bible Belt? Do you want to meet some amazing atheists but have a limited budget? Then check out the Nashville Nuns Conference, or NanoCon for short, which will be held on March 18th, 2017 in Nashville, Tennessee. This year's speakers include Matt Dillahunty, Mandisa Thomas, J.T. Eberhard, Gail Jordan, Jim Helton, Callie Wright, and St. Patrick, with musical guests the Sunday Assembly Nashville Band and Chibi Kodama. Just go to NashvilleNuns.com to register because it's February and I'm just now getting to producing this promo.
All right. I've got another story. All right. Church police force.
Yeah, I heard about this and Okay, go ahead.
Okay. A bill designed to allow a church to create a police force is making its way through the Alabama legislature.
Mm-hmm.
House Bill 180 would authorize Briarwood Presbyterian Church in Vestavia, I don't know. Weird.
Uh-huh.
Hills, Alabama, to independently employ full-time police officers to protect the safety and integrity of the church and its ministries.
Oh, good. So I can talk now?
You can talk now.
Because you're just looking at me. Okay, one, why do they need to have their own police force? Do they need that kind of security for their church?
Maybe.
That's not even close to my point. Anyways, it was just like a side note. I don't freaking think so.
No, I don't think so either.
No, there's no freaking way that they should be running their own police force. Hello, it's a church.
So, when asking committee to whom these officers would answer, a Briarwood representative responded that they would answer to the church.
I know, that's what I'm talking about. That's crap. Separation church and state ringing a bell to anybody?
Well, there was one time when the police force was tied to the church. I think we call that the Inquisition.
I was going to say, why does that sound like history to me?
Yeah. So Representative Connie Rowe of Jasper is a former police chief and said she supports allowing Briarwood to create its own force.
Seriously?
Seriously. She says, They will conduct their own investigations. They will conduct their own security. They will make their own arrest, and instead of calling on local law enforcement agency to take over the particular situation they're trying to control, they will do that themselves. All they will utilize from other law enforcement agencies is their lockup facilities. So,
okay, to me, that sounds insane.
Right.
Because you're giving them the authority to pretty much do whatever the hell they want.
On church property.
Not only on church property, but in whatever way they deem that they need to deal with it.
Right.
Or whom they need to deal with.
So this raises a huge problem because now if we create this police force that is in effect on church property, where does this jurisdiction of, say, the city police stop?
Right.
So will the city police be able to go on church property?
Well, and that's what my next question was, because who's to police them when they start doing criminal acts, if they aren't already, or if they do in the future?
Right.
Because churches aren't exactly, real clean on that aspect.
No, they're not.
To do that is basically just allowing them to free range with no authority whatsoever to investigate them, to, anything. It's just nuts. I mean, it really is a crazy thing to do.
Yeah, I am completely against this concept.
And also, not to interrupt you, but I am. Why the hell are they, a private entity, allowed to become a police force? I'm not understanding that part. Why can't any other organization decide that they want their own police force?
Well, that was one of my questions. I think we covered something like this last year.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure we did, but I couldn't find it in any of the show notes.
Yeah, well, my memory can't help you, so.
So, and that bill would have allowed private corporations to create their own police force as well.
Yeah, that's insane.
So the question here is, where does it stop? Where do other churches get to make their own police force?
Well, if this passes, yes, they would.
Yeah, they would have to. Does the Muslim mosque get to create its own police force?
Oh, they'll have a heyday with that.
Yeah. Can the Satanic Temple make their own police force?
Well, according to this, if this passes, then yeah. But again, why the hell are we allowing private entities to be able to even have this as an option? I mean, that's why we have police through our government, because it's not with basically the private sector. I mean, churches aren't government, so I don't understand how this is even an option on the table.
If you live in Alabama, you need to call your legislator and tell them that this is a big old no.
I mean, that technically doesn't stop anyone from creating their own police force.
No, it wouldn't.
So is this one particular church?
Yeah, this one particular church wants to create their own police force.
So couldn't, you get some kind of... I'm thinking of like another group that meets up, kind of a deal, and they say, hey, we want to make our own police force. You're just going to have a bunch of police forces running around and nobody's stopping anybody from doing anything?
That sounds familiar.
Good point.
New York City had that for quite some time.
Yeah, the fact that they're actually considering this, I think, is the most mind-boggling for me.
Yeah, and
it's one thing to bring it up, but to actually seriously look at it?
Yeah, this should have died in committee, but it didn't. It's actually going to go to the House floor. This should have never made it out of committee, period.
No, absolutely not. There's so many violations with this, it's not even funny.
It'll be an instant lawsuit for separation of church and state.
It kind of already is.
Because a church police force should never be able to utilize the jail system.
Right. Oh,
that's
crazy.
Let's hand over mall security to.
Right. Exactly.
You know.
So they're basically saying, okay, so for whatever reason, they're going to arrest this guy that came to their church that. Let's call him an atheist just for fun. And, they come up with some reason why they're arresting him. And they say, okay, we need to put him in your jail. Are you kidding me? That's basically like a private citizen being able to utilize our jails to put someone in it. Because that's what they want to do.
Because he broke a blasphemy law.
Well, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Because that's exactly what would have to happen. So they say it's for the protection of their congregants. What church needs that kind of protection?
Well, that actually was my initial question when we first started. Why do they need that kind of protection? And first of all, what is wrong with the police force that they have in their community? There shouldn't be anything wrong with it. If anything, the police should be looking at this as a kind of an insult. because according to them, they need to make their own because what they have isn't adequate enough, I guess.
Well, maybe.
I mean, and if anything,
Hey, I got an
they should
idea.
have looked at, the committee or whatever should have looked at it that way.
Maybe if the church paid taxes, we could have a better police force.
Now, why would they go and do that?
I don't know.
Because, that would just, make too much sense.
I know.
Anyways, it's starting to irritate me.
All right. So, up next, we have an interview with Scott Smith of Recovering from Religion.
Which I was not present for.
No, but I had a great time. Recovering from Religion is, well, I'm going to let Scott really get into what it is, and then we'll come back afterwards.
Okie dokie.
And welcome to the Yakking session. This week we have Scott Smith from Recovering from Religion. Scott Smith was born and raised in Kentucky. He attended the University of Kentucky and graduated with a bachelor's degree in psychology. Scott is a retired U.S. Army intelligence analyst who served in West Germany, Fort Drum, New York, Haiti, Somalia, Hawaii, Iraq, Washington, D.C., and San Antonio, Texas. He has been with Recovering from Religion Hotline Project since September 2015. Scott is now a shift supervisor with the Hotline Project, as well as a co-host of the Recovering from Religion podcast. His hobbies include marathon running, bass guitar, and golf. Welcome to the Yakking session, Scott.
Well, thanks, Robert. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, been looking forward to this for a while, so I think we should just start yakking.
Sure.
So first, let's get some questions out of the way, because I've got a few. What exactly is Recovering from Religion, and what's the purpose?
Okay, Recovering from Religion's a nonprofit organization who helps people that are trying to transition from one faith to the other or a faith to no faith. And we have three primary resources. The first one's local support groups. The next is a secular therapy project. And the flagship project, you might say, is the Recovering from Religion Hotline Project, where we have callers call in to talk about their recovering from religion issues.
So, how did you get started in Recovering from Religion?
See, I attended ApostaCon back in September 2015, and I talked to a few people that were already on the hotline, and it just sounded very interesting, and I signed up for the training, and I've been doing that ever since, and it's very rewarding. I enjoy it a whole lot.
Yeah. I remember when Recovering from Religion started the hotline, I was very excited to have something like that. That's an incredible resource for those that are coming out of faith. I didn't exactly come out of a faith myself, so I can't exactly relate to some of that stuff, but I do understand the necessity of something like that.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of a one-of-a-kind resource, and it's been going on, I think it started in February 2015. And to date, we've had about 1,500 calls and chats. We also have a chat room for those who feel more comfortable chatting rather than talking. And it's going strong. It's a great resource.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm definitely glad that's there. So the Recover from Religion Project also has a secular therapy project. Did I read that right?
Yes.
Yeah. What is that?
Well, the Secular Therapy Project is a database of therapists that only use evidence-based therapy, okay? If you're non-religious and you need therapy and your therapist tells you to pray or read the Bible, well, number one, you've wasted your time, you've wasted your money, you're not going to get a refund, and furthermore, you're not getting the therapy that you really need. And it's harder than you might think to find a therapist that will only use evidence-based therapy. So if you need therapy and you're not religious, you can go to recoveringfromreligion.org and click on the secular therapy button. And from there, you just go through the process and you'll find a therapist that will only use evidence-based therapy. A lot of callers to the hotline, we refer this to them. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I live in an area that's really conservative and there's no way there's going to be a therapist like that around here. Well, a good many of these therapists will use remote therapy, like over Skype or whatever platform you prefer. So really, there's no excuse not to get the therapy you need. There's statistics out there saying that most people are in need of therapy at some point in their life. Okay, quite a few of those people don't get that therapy for whatever reason. And today, there's no excuse for that. If you got a computer and you got Skype, you can get the therapy you need. Most insurance covers therapy, That's between you and your insurance company. But a lot of people say, it just costs too much.
Right.
And what's the cost of not getting the therapy? It's very possible it will cost you a whole lot not getting the therapy compared to actually getting the therapy. So definitely, if you're interested in this, recoveringfromreligion.org, secular therapy button. And if you're a therapist and would like to be a part of this database, it's easy. You just go to the same site and click on I'm a therapist, and they'll start the process of venting you and seeing if you're a right fit for this database. And by the way, it's not only religion that's a problem in therapy. It could be anything that's non-evidence-based, like karma or New Age stuff. There's nothing wrong with New Age stuff, but it's not a replacement for therapy.
Right. Now, a question on, say, the therapist. What if they're a Christian therapist, right? Could they still be listed on the database?
Sure. I mean, we're not looking for atheist therapists. You can still have a belief as long as you just used evidence-based therapy in the therapy.
Well, that is good to know. So you could actually get a therapist that understands some of what you're coming from, right?
Exactly. And the therapy we're talking about is more than just something to do with religion. It could be any kind of therapy like depression, anxiety, marriage counseling, or whatever.
Yeah. That's actually amazing. I'm really glad that's out there. I remember hearing about that as well.
Yeah, and by the way, that started back in 2012, and to date, there's been over 10,000 referrals through the Secular Therapy Project. So that's 10,000 people that had problems finding a therapist that wouldn't tell them to pray.
That's actually disturbing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely glad the Secular Therapy Project is there. I think that's an invaluable resource for pretty much everyone. Even the religious people could benefit from that in some way.
There's a lot of preachers out there that discourage therapy. They'll tell they'll tell their church members that they need to pray or read certain Bible verses, and they're not getting the therapy they need, and that festers over years, and that can result in tragedy.
Yeah, that's really harmful advice. I'm so frustrated when I read those stories or see these videos, these pastors talking about it. I'm like, this is real problems people have. Prayer is not going to solve this.
Right. And it's one thing for a preacher to tell a church member one-on-one not to get therapy, but then we got people like Tom Cruise that goes on TV that really tries to talk a lot of people out of therapy. They say it's not necessary, you should take vitamins. So that message reaches a whole lot more people than just a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah, that's Scientology. It drives me batty. You guys just covered that on your show this week, didn't you?
Yes, I know a whole lot more about Scientology than I ever thought I'd know. It's actually a pretty interesting belief, but it does far more harm than good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I haven't gotten to that in my playlist this week, but I certainly will. Speaking of your podcast, let's talk about how that started and what you guys do on your podcast.
Sure. Well, let's see. We released our first episode in May of 2016, and I was just thinking about some of our hotline callers, and excuse me, and many of them say that they listen to podcasts on a regular basis. Then I got to thinking, well, when podcasts give the hotline a plug, that usually generates some calls to the hotline. So my two brain cells finally connected and went zzz, and it's like, we should have our own podcast. And I sat down, I drew up a format of how I thought it should look like, and I almost threw it away right there because I thought there has to be a reason this hasn't been done before. So I emailed the format to fellow hotline volunteer Emily Karp, and I said, Emily, tell me why this sucks. And she wrote back, let's talk on the phone. And we discussed a few things, and I asked her if she wanted to co-host this thing with me, and she agreed. And we have no background in broadcasting or journalism or anything like that at all. We had no clue of what we were doing at the very beginning. We barely have a clue now. But we binge watched a lot of YouTube videos and listened to a lot of podcasts, and we asked for help from a lot of people, and we finally got it going. And in the process of trying to figure out everything, we emailed about a half a dozen podcasters who we know and know of. and we asked them for advice on hosting, software, equipment, this type of thing. And every one of them replied. And one replied within 2 minutes, and I'm not exaggerating. And that was no illusions from the scathing atheist.
No, of course. Yeah, he's an amazing guy.
Oh, yeah.
He really is.
And he gave us his opinions on what we were asking for. And then he said, I remember hearing a speech on the Hotline Project about a year ago, and thinking about it today almost brings a tear to my eye. And, he went on to say, if you need anything from us, don't hesitate to reach out. And when I read that, it's like, I think we're doing something pretty cool, and it's definitely worth the time and trouble. So that's where we are today. And let's see, we've aired 12 episodes now, and we just finished the Scientology podcast, which is airing today on Super Bowl Sunday. So that's definitely going to affect Super Bowl ratings. And I apologize to the NFL in advance if our podcast is making people not watch the Super Bowl. It's just a coincidence, I swear.
Yeah, I will definitely be listening to that as opposed to watching the Superb Owl. So let's get into who Scott Smith is a little bit. So did you come from a religious background?
Yes, I was raised Southern Baptist. Of course, that doctrine believes you can't get into heaven without a covered dish. And I was baptized at the normal age, I guess. I was kicked out of Sunday school at age 10 for asking too many questions. And I swear, I wasn't that annoying kid. I was usually pretty shy. And I certainly wasn't a genius kid. But I thought I was doing something pretty cool if I was stumping these adults that was teaching Sunday school class. So, after that, I still had a lot of questions, but no answers. My parents couldn't answer any religious questions or anything. And attending college, a guy bet me $5 that the Bible actually said that women were not allowed to teach a man anything. I took the bet, lost the bet, because that's what it says. And that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And he pointed out a few other things about rape and slavery, things like that. And I thought, I better read this thing to find out exactly what it says. And I did from cover to cover when I was in college, and I couldn't believe what I read. But it was Kentucky in the 80s, so you better be a believer, or you'll be an outcast, right?
Right.
So, my first wife was the daughter of a Southern Baptist minister. I don't know what the hell I was thinking there, but that was the first time I got to see the inside of the church and realized that the church was actually a business. You could say it's more than a business, but it is a business nonetheless. So that was kind of an eye-opener. And about 7 years ago, my mother-in-law was telling me a story about how her first husband left her. And she was barely making ends meet. She wanted her kids to go to church. And not long after they started going to that church, they had a project where they wanted everyone to donate $50 so the preacher could get his kitchen remodeled. Well, she didn't.
That just seems a bit odd.
Yeah. But they thought if everyone gave just $50, that this would cover the project. Well, like I said, she didn't have any money. The next Sunday, they asked her, "Hey, we noticed you haven't made your pledge yet." She said, "I don't have it." The next Sunday, they said, "Hey, by you giving us $50, this would make God happy." Well, I won't tell you exactly what she said, but no. And when she told me this, it was just kind of surreal. I mean, all the other things that made me question my belief kind of surfaced. And I remember being in my office. I remember being in my office and just staring into space. And I thought, I'm an atheist. And up to that point, I never entertained the possibility of being an atheist. And my wife got home shortly after that, and I said, "Do you remember that story about your mom in church?" And I had to retell her that story. And when I was finished telling my wife that story, I said, "I'm an atheist." And she looked at me and said, "Yeah, I think I am too." And we arrived at that conclusion at the same time, so we avoided a lot of stress that a lot of couples have regarding that. So that's where I'm at today, and that was 7 years ago. And, I've been active with the hotline and recovering from religion, and it feels good to be able to help people out like that. I don't have a huge coming out story myself. Mine was pretty tame. My parents were dead by that time. I was retired from the Army, so I don't have a boss or customers to worry about. So I don't have a story like that, but I've heard so many that I know that the hotline is important to get into and keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. I've read and heard so many of those stories as well, and some of them, were pretty scary. And I'm certainly glad the Hotline Project is there for those folks that need someone that can understand what they're going through and help them get through that, to help them get over that last hump, maybe.
Yeah, and, all of our callers have one thing in common. They don't have anyone else they can talk to, and that's where we come in. And we get calls from people who have recently left their faith, and that decision isn't being accepted by loved ones. And we have other callers we call doubting believers. They've been religious their whole life, and now they're starting to ask questions, and it's not making a whole lot of sense. And you could say maybe they're on the fence. And for the doubting believers, we're there to listen to them without judging them.
Right.
And we don't try to talk them in or out of anything. If after the conversation they feel like they need to stay in their faith, that's fine with us. We don't convert or deconvert anybody. It's totally up to them. And by the way, I might as well give the hotline number while we're talking about it.
Yeah, let's do that.
Call is 1-844-I-DOUBT-IT.
That's an awesome number.
Yeah. And the hours for the hotline, let's see, I want to make sure I get this right. For the hotline, it's 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. Central, 7 nights a week. And for the chat line, it's 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Central on weekends, Saturday and Sunday. So if you can call or initiate a chat during that time, you'll talk to or chat to a live hotline agent. And these agents are volunteers, okay? No one gets paid anything. These volunteers know the importance of having someone to talk to about these issues. And right now we have about 40 active agents, and calls can last anywhere from 5 minutes to over an hour, depending on the situation.
How would someone go about becoming an agent if they wanted to?
Excuse me, I have to have a drink.
Not a problem.
Yeah, to volunteer, it's a process, but it's still pretty easy. All you have to do is go to recoveringfromreligion.org and click on the donate button. I'm sorry. You go to Recovering from Religion and click on the volunteer button. And from there, you fill out an application and you send it back in electronically. And after that, we'll set up a telephone interview with you, which lasts about 10 or 15 minutes. And if you're what we're looking for, we'll accept you and we'll put you through training. Training is online with a live trainer. There's 2 sessions. Each section lasts about 3 hours each. And you'll be trained on how to handle certain calls, listening skills, and how to operate the software. Whether you're a chat agent or a hotline agent, everything comes through the internet. You don't have to use your phone, and you don't have to go anywhere.
That was going to be my next question.
To your own home.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. It's the only thing
that
I've been involved with that hasn't cost me a dime. Usually there's at least gas money if you volunteer for something, right?
Right.
But here you just do it from the privacy of your own home, and you get to help a lot of people that are going through these recovering from religion issues, and that feels really good. But there's also a secondary benefit from volunteering, and you get to hear a lot of stories, okay? And some of these stories are pretty sad, as you might think, and some are pretty funny. And there's some you'll never forget. But after you've taken a few of these calls, you begin to know what's going on out there when it comes from someone leaving their faith or having questions about their faith. And you have your fingers on the pulse of what's going on about recovering from religion. And it's made me, I think, a smarter person as far as religion and harm from religion.
Yeah, definitely. I could definitely see how that could do that. So one of the questions I ask all our guests that come on for the Yakking session is, what is your favorite movie quote? I mean, most of our little quips that we use are movie quotes. We have movie quotes all over the place. So I think it leads or gives some insight into a person's personality when their favorite movie quote is used. So what is yours?
Okay. I could quote probably a few dozen lines from the movie Blazing Saddles, which I think is my all-time favorite movie. But
yeah, that is an amazing movie. Yes.
Yeah, one of a kind. So I think maybe one of my favorite lines is when Bart says, "Well, Jim, since you are my guest and I am your host, what is your pleasure? What do you like to do?" And Jim says, "Oh, I don't know, play chess, screw." And Bart says, "Well, let's play chess."
That's Gene Wilder in that movie was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much anything that Mel Brooks put out was really, really good. If you're into that style of comedy.
Oh yeah, it's one of a kind.
Yeah, Blazing Saddles was absolutely one of a kind, and it could never be remade. I mean, you couldn't. There's no way you could remake that today.
Well, I listened to the director's cut of that with Mel Brooks in the background, and he made the movie, and then he let the studio watch it, and the studio said something like, "That's a great movie. We love it. Just take out all the offensive stuff and release it." And he just ignored that, and it got released as is. And it wouldn't be nearly as funny if there wasn't any offensive lines in there.
Yeah, that's part of what made that movie so funny, is that it was a reflection of what was actually going on in society at the time. I mean, it was released in '74, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And, it was... There was certainly overt racism at the time. There were lots of those little quips all over the place in normal society. So, yeah, I think it was social commentary.
Yeah, and there's probably about a dozen lines that are really funny that I wouldn't want to quote on your show because it might raise eyebrows to people that's not familiar with that movie.
Right. And I think it probably would. Well, this has been a very interesting yakking session. I've greatly enjoyed it.
I have too, Robert. I like your podcast, and you guys submitted a listener story for our show a couple of weeks ago on secular parenting, and you talked about homeschooling as secular parents and the challenges for that. And I never thought about Christian math before. That was pretty interesting. That gave me something.
So that book is crazy. And it's not that they changed the math; it's the context in like the world problems. So it's like, if Noah had to count this many animals, how many animals did he have? Type stuff, right? How did he get all those on the ark? Type things, crazy stuff.
Yeah, that's similar to the way North Korea teaches their kids how to count, but yeah, it's not anything to do with Noah. It's like dead Americans.
Yeah, that's disturbing.
Yeah. Anyway,
so we'll get all your links on the show. Do you have any other contact info you want to plug? Anything else you want to plug before we go?
Sure. The third resource of recovering from religion is local support groups. And there's roughly, I think around 100 local support groups. And if you're looking for a local support group, just click on recoveringfromreligion.org and local support groups. And you can probably find a local support group in your area. If there's not, inquire about starting one. Start one up. We'll help you out. We'll give you the tools. And that's certainly a way to give back. And as far as where you can find us, recoveringfromreligion.org will get you to all the resources. You can certainly donate to our resource by clicking the donate button. That would be nice. And if you want to volunteer, we really need volunteers. I said our hotline, chat line hours, there's not too many shifts. And if you volunteer with the hotline, all we're asking is 2 hours per month. That's not a whole lot. I think
that's not a lot at all.
At least 2 hours per month. That's the minimum that we ask for you once you get trained. A lot of our agents do a whole lot more than that because they enjoy it that much more. But 2 hours isn't a whole lot. So
not really.
If your listeners could consider doing that, we would certainly appreciate that, and we could have more shifts and help more people. Let's see. If you have questions about our podcast, email us at podcast@recoveringfromreligion.org. And if you have any stories you'd like to share on our show, we'd appreciate that too. And let's see. That's all I can think of.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks for coming on the show. It has been great fun. And we'll see about having you on again sometime.
All right. I appreciate that, Robert.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Well, that was a good interview with Scott. I thoroughly enjoyed having him on. Make sure all his links are on the show notes. We did do some discussions about the clergy projects, secular therapy, and all that stuff. So I'll get all those links on there.
Yes, and I was too sick to get involved to do the interview. I could barely talk. And currently, right now, he's going to have to edit quite a bit because I can't stop coughing. So maybe next time.
I got about 30 notes on my
I can't help it. I can't stop coughing. You're lucky I'm even talking right now.
I know. Anyway, with that's all the yakking I'm going to have.
Oh, I am so done with the yakking today.
We always like to hear your feedback, so leave us a voicemail at 704-802-YAK or an email at podcast@secularyakking.com.
More input.
All comments are welcome. We like to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. You also can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Google+.
If you like our show, head over to your podcast directory of choice and leave us a 5-star review. If you really like the show, support the show on our Patreon page.
I'd buy that for $1.
And we'll be back next week with more yakking to please your eardrums.
Bye-bye, boys.
Have fun storming the castle.
Think it'll work?
We're taking. Bye-bye.